Welcome everyone. My name is Mehrotra, and I'm a product manager here at Plaid, working on our income product. A new product we announced a few weeks ago, which is still in beta. And alongside me today is Tyler. Tyler, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, certainly. Hey everyone, my name's Tyler. I'm a sales engineer over here at Plaid, focusing on our new products. So included in that is our income product. So then in this session, I'm here to give a technical demo where we're going to build a live app from scratch using our income product.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tyler. So since we kind of announced this product recently, a few weeks ago, we've heard a lot of excitement about Plaid Income. So we thought we'd do this workshop here today to tell you a bit more about what the income product is, how it works, some of the really cool features we're working on, and then we'll dive into a live demo. Yes, live demo with Tyler. No pressure, Tyler. And then we'll get into some Q&A towards the end here. Cool. So just some housekeeping while we get started here. Please do feel free to ask questions. You should see a Q&A widget on the bottom below. So jump in there with any questions you might have. We should be able to get to a few of those towards the end. Also get involved, get in the chat. Let us know what you're up to. Let us know what you're building and how you might use Plaid Income. We'll also be recording this and posting it to YouTube. So if you miss anything or want to share it, we'll have that up there later. Cool. So diving in, we spent a lot of time talking to you, our customers, and we've heard that income verification and employment verification are pretty critical and crucial to nearly every loan application, but that the process today is kind of slow and cumbersome and can be a little bit tricky to get through, which can often lead to frustration from users and ultimately abandonment. So with that in mind, we wanted to build an income product that was fast, simple, easy, and provide the information that you need. So let's talk about the income product and kind of give you an overview here. So the two different mechanisms by which we want to offer income verification is by payroll income and document income. So payroll income is the method in which a user can connect to their payroll provider, and Plaid will then retrieve current employment and income information, as well as source documents such as pay stubs, W-2s, 1099s, etc. Next up, we have document income, in which a user uploads pay documents themselves, such as pay stubs, W-2s, etc. And then those documents will be parsed, and then Plaid will return that data in the form of structured JSON. Cool. So before I dive into how these two different mechanisms work individually, let's talk a bit about how they work together. So the way that we envision this kind of working is through what we call a waterfall method, in which users go through this payroll income flow, which again is one in which they authenticate with their payroll providers, and we retrieve that information. And if for whatever reason, the user forgets what their username and password is, we also have this document income flow, which can still serve their needs, namely by the user uploading those pay documents, and those pay documents are parsed, and that information is returned. So let's dive into a little bit deeper on the payroll income piece. So here we see a snapshot of how this works. And we're starting off with the user indicating that they want to verify instantly and go through this payroll income flow. So then they're prompted to select their employer. Now, if our goal is for the users to ultimately authenticate with their payroll providers, why are we talking about employers? Well, one thing that we found is that users often don't know or can't remember who their payroll provider is. So to help address this, we've built out this employer database with over 250,000 different employers. Using that, we can match employers back to payroll providers, right? So by prompting users to select their employer, we can then direct them to who their payroll provider is. In this case, this is Sequoia, right? Just taking a step back here, I think what's really cool about this employer database is it gives us those matchings. And in fact, if you already have employer information about your users, you could supply that to us and we can skip this whole search and select process altogether and go straight to the payroll provider. So from there, the user then provides their credentials and authenticate with their payroll provider, at which point the user then has the option to review their data. And then after that, then that income information will be available back to you. So one of the things that I kind of mentioned before was really, I think, a big win in terms of conversion was this employer searching. And I want to talk about another conversion win here, which is this credentialless login flow. So as I mentioned, kind of in the same vein of users maybe not remembering or not knowing who their payroll provider is, we also have this credentialless login method that we're building out. Today, we're starting with ADP, but we have some other exciting partnerships in development here to expand this a little bit. And what I'm getting at here is that when users go through this flow, they can provide some information about themselves, which we can match against ADP, for example, and then users can go through this one-time password flow and authenticate that way so that they don't have to use their credentials at all. Cool. So, if the user is going through that payroll income flow, and despite all of the sort of exciting features we have optimizing for conversion, if the user, like I said, kind of just can't get through that flow, we also have this document income flow, right? And in this flow, the user uploads one or more of their pay documents, namely pay stubs, W-2s, 1099s, etc. Those documents are parsed for information and returned back as structured JSON with that information. All right, awesome. So I just told you about some cool features. So just to recap here, we really wanted to optimize for conversion here. And things like our employer database with over 250,000 employers, as well as credentialless flows, I think are big wins for conversion and how we can get users moving through this income verification flow. We also are building this with comprehensive coverage in mind, right? Plaid can support different types of workers: full-time, part-time, gig economy, freelancers, and more. And really, this is a one-stop solution for your income verification needs, right? With one integration, you can access both income methods, both payroll income and document income. And another thing I want to highlight here is that we have flexibility in mind. We want to be able to meet your needs and fit your use cases, which is why a lot of the different components here that I've mentioned are highly customizable to fit into your use case. Awesome. I'm really, really excited to see what everyone is going to do with our income product. To request early beta access, please speak to your account manager or hop onto plaid.com/income, and you should be able to find some more information and express your interest there as well. Now that we've covered what the product is, how it works, and some of its benefits, I'm going to pass it up to Tyler to talk about how you can get started integrating with Plaid Income, and let's see that live demo.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Raj. All right. So what are we going to be building today? As I mentioned before, it's going to be a demo application using the income product that Raj was just telling you about. So high level, it's going to be a simple web application with, again, our income product. It's going to be a Node.js backend with an Express server with a simple front end with some JavaScript and HTML. And if you want to check out the completed app, you can check it out on my GitHub, which is at github.com/Tyler Nappy /Plaid Income Workshop. So how does this all work from a technical perspective, right? So what's going to happen within your application, a user would request to obtain their income. From there, you would create an income verification on our end by just providing the webhook URL. And so this would then return back to an income verification ID. You would then take that income verification ID and then create a link token. So then it associates that particular income verification to a link token, and then it gets returned over to your backend. You then send that link token to your backend server, or sorry, your front end, and then you initialize it within Plaid Link. Then when the user goes through that flow, they input their username and password. When it's successful, but on success callback fires, letting you know that, okay, this has been successful. And then from there, Plaid then goes and aggregates the information. When it's completed, we then fire a webhook to the webhook URL that you initially sent over when creating that income verification, and then it has the income verification ID within the payload. So then you would then know, okay, now it's time to go ahead and pull that information. So then you can pull these two API endpoints, the summary get and the pay stubs get, in order to get information about their income. So now that we know how this all works from an architecture standpoint, let's go ahead and start writing some code. So I already have a scaffolded app here with an index.js file, which is going to be our backend, and then also our index.html file, which is going to be our front end. And then I already have the libraries installed, so I'm not going to go through all that. So I have .env to pull in the client ID and secret key that you find on the Plaid dashboard. Express, which is like a micro framework for creating servers in Node, and then the meat and potatoes of it, which is Plaid, which is our client library for Node.js. And then just to note, we do have client libraries in all the major software languages. So if you guys are building in a different language, we do have a client library available for that. So let's let's go ahead and start coding. So first we're going to include .env. So as I was saying before, this is going to import the client ID and secret key. So I actually also have a .env file here that has that information. I'm not going to show it because obviously this is sensitive information. Everyone has it, so you don't want to share that to anybody besides the folks who need it. Then let's go ahead and include express. So we'll say require express. And we'll go ahead and initialize it. And we'll just say express parens. From here, let's go ahead and include some libraries. So we'll say const path is equal to require path. And so this is going to make it a little bit easier to concatenate string paths when we send over the index.html file to serve it on the front end. We'll also go ahead and include util. So this is just going to be able to make inspecting the JSON payload of the income APIs a little bit easier so we can see everything that's going on there. Then we'll go ahead and create a port, and we'll say it's either a process.env.port, or for this particular use case, we'll say, or it's on port 3000. Next, what we want to do is we're just going to go ahead and create a variable income verification ID. And so what's going to happen is typically you would save this in a data store, but because we're going to do a really simple app, we're just going to store it in a variable here. But again, you would persist that in a data store on your end. For here, let's go ahead and start this up. So we'll say app.listen, pass in the port, a callback function that returns nothing. And then we'll just say console.log listening on port, and we'll just pass in that port there. Cool. What we also want to do right now as well is actually send that or serve that index.html file. So we'll say app.get, and when we hit the root path, it will serve this. So we'll say async request response, and then we'll just say response.send file path.join. We'll do the directory name, and then we'll say index.html. And then let's lastly go ahead over here to index.html and add something so we know that this is actually working, right? So we'll say h1, so we'll say Plaid Income Workshop. Cool. So this should be a really simple server that then sends that index.html to the front end and serves it. So let's go ahead and start. We'll say node index.js, listening on port 3000. So we'll say localhost 3000, and voila. So very simple, but not too interesting at this point, right? What we want to actually do is add Plaid's income product. So let's go ahead and start adding some more code to this. So first, let's go ahead and include Plaid. So we'll say Plaid require Plaid, and then we'll say const Plaid client is equal to new, not new Plaid.client, and then this just takes an object to a few things. So first we're going to pass in the client ID, and so again it was imported from that .env file, so process.env, I think it's called client ID. Then we want to pass in the secret, so again process.env.secret, capitalized though. And last, we want to pass in the environment. This is going to be sandbox. So it's all dummy data. So we're just going to go ahead here and say plaid.environments.sandbox. And so again, you can change that depending on what environment you are. So just to give an overview, we have 3 different environments. We have sandbox, which is all dummy data, which is what we're going to be using. We also have development and production. And so development environment is for all practical purposes the same as our production environment, in that it's live data. The only difference is that it's meant for testing. And so what you would do is you would test to see, like all the pipes are connected correctly before migrating over to production. And you're also capped at a certain amount of verification of incomes that you can make. Cool. So we have Plaid, easy as that to add. Let's go ahead and create a route for creating the income income verification ID, and then also that link token and send it over to the front end. So we'll say app.get, we'll just call it create link token, if I can spell it correctly, async request response. And then first what we're going to do is we're going to say const income verification ID, and then we're just going to camel case it, income verification ID is equal to plaid client dot create income verification. And then we're going to pass in that webhook URL. So we didn't assign it a variable. Let's go ahead and do it up here. So we'll say const webhook is equal to https:// example.com/plaid income webhook. So again, when the income verification is complete, it's going to send a webhook to that web, or it's going to send a webhook with the income verification ID in the payload to let you know that it is done processing to go ahead and pull. So moving on, so we have the income verification ID. Let's go ahead and create that link token, but passing the income verification ID to it. So we'll say const link token. Case link token is equal to, oh, we forgot a wait here. We don't want that moving on before it's finished. So say await plaid client dot create link token, and then this takes in an object of a few different items. So first, it's going to take in the user object. And so we're going to pass in the client user ID. And so this is just some unique identifier on your end. And so this shouldn't be any PII, but what this is used for is if you want to be able to debug in the dashboard a little bit easier, it will associate link sessions with that particular user ID. It just makes it a little bit simpler for you all. Get the user, then we'll do the client name. So this is what's going to be displayed within Plaid link. So we'll say app of Tyler. Then let's go ahead and pass in the country codes. So because we're only in the US right now, I'm only going to pass US. Then let's go ahead and pass in the products array. So we're using our income product. So I'm going to type in income verification. And then what we want to pass in is the language. And so this is going to be in English. And then lastly, what we really care about is income verification. It's going to be an object, and we're going to pass in that income verification ID. And so we're just going to pass in, actually, let's go ahead and change this real quick. So we're going to say income verification ID is equal to income verification ID. We're just going to assign it to that variable, and then we're going to pass it in here. Cool. And then we're going to go down, add a comma. And then last but not least, we're going to return this to the front end. So we're going to say response.json is link token. Cool. So let's just stop here for a second and go over what we just did. So when the front end loads, it's going to call this route create link token. What it's first going to do is it's going to create an income verification ID by passing in the webhook. From there, it's going to create the link token by passing in the client user ID, the client name, the country codes, the products, the language, and then what we care about most, which is the income verification ID, and then sends it over to the front end. Now, what I was saying before is when the income verification is complete processing, what will happen is Plaid will ping the webhook that you provided when initially creating the income verification. But because this is sandbox mode, we're just going to pull it as soon as we create the income verification. So when that on success callback fires in the front end. So we're going to cheat a little bit. So I'm just going to create a route here that's, we'll call it get income data, that it's going to be called as soon as the user goes through the flow. So we'll say async request response. And then let's go ahead and start getting the data. So we'll say const summary response is equal to await plaid.client.get summary. And then we're going to pass in the income verification ID. I'm just going to add some council.logs just to make it easier to read afterwards. Council.log. And we'll say council.log util.inspect, and then we're going to pass in that summary response. Summary, false, null, and then true. Then let's go ahead and get the pay stub. So we'll say const pay stub response is equal to await Plaid client.get get pay stub. Oh, it's got to be Plaid client, that's why. Plaid client, get pay stub. And so we would pass in the income verification ID to pull that. And then again, we're just going to do some logging here to make it easier when we want to read it. And last but not least, we actually want to print out the response. So council.log util.inspect. We're going to pass in the pay stub response, and then false, null, true. Cool. And then we'll just say the front end response, send status 200. Everything went according to plan. We're not really going to look at the unhappy path here. Okay, so we have our backends written. So again, after that on success callback fires, we're going to go ahead and get the summary. So we call Plaid client, got get summary with that income verification ID that we saved up top, and then inspects it. Same thing for the pay stub response, prints it out, and then we say, okay, everything's cool and dandy, and response, we send a 200 response. So that should be it for the back end. So let's go over here to the front end and start adding some code for Plaid link. So we'll say const, we'll call it fetch link token is equal to async function with with no parameters. And so first what we're going to do is call that route that we created, right? So we're going to say const response is equal to await fetch. And then I forget what we called it. Create link token, looks like. So create link token. Cool. And from here, we're just going to get the link token from it. So say link token is equal to await response.json. And then we're just going to return it. So we're going to say return link token. Cool. And now we want to actually call this function, right, in Plaid link. So let's go ahead and add Plaid link. So we'll add a handler for it. Const handler is equal to Plaid dot create. And this takes an object of a bunch of stuff. So first, what we're going to add is the token. So we're going to say token, and then we're just going to say await fetch link token. So that that function that we just wrote up here. So it's going to create the link token and then pass it into this parameter. Then we're going to pass in the on success callback function. So again, so this is going to be fired when the user successfully goes through the flow successfully, and it's going to return a few things. So it's going to return a public token, which we don't necessarily need. So I'm just going to pass an underscore, and then it's going to pass back some metadata associated with the request, or sorry, with the payroll provider that the user went through. I'm also going to make this async. So let's just go ahead and log it. So we'll say council.log to log the metadata to see, what it is. And then again, we're cheating a little bit again because this is in Sandbox. So we're just going to go ahead and call that route that we created on the back end. That will then immediately just pull the information. So we'll say await fetch. And then again, I don't recall what we named it. So let's go ahead here. Called it get income data. Cool. Now let's go ahead and add the other callback functions. So we have on exit, and so this gets fired when the user goes through the flow, or sorry, exits out of the flow, or if there was an error associated with it. So it returns back an error message and then metadata associated with it. So we'll just go ahead and log it. So we'll council.log error, and then we'll enter the line here, council.log metadata. And then last but not least, the on event. So the on event gets fired, as the user just steps through the Plaid link flow. So when they click something, when they search for something. So it's a good way from like a data analytics perspective to just understand, how your user is going through the Plaid link flow. And we're just going to go ahead here and say council.log metadata. Cool. And that's it for Plaid link. So not many lines of code. Again, it's just going to pass in that token parameter by calling the fetch link token create endpoint, and then it calls that route on our backend to actually do it. And then we have these callback functions here. So again, on exit, it's going to fire when, if the user exits the flow and if there was an error associated with it. On event gets fired, as the user just clicks through. And then what we really care about is the on success. So when this gets called, we successfully go through it. We're going to log the metadata, and then we're just going to go ahead and retrieve the income data. So let's go ahead and add a button here to start everything up. So we'll say button, give it an ID, and we'll call it income button. And we'll say get your income data via Plaid. Cool. And then we'll just have here some jQuery to make our lives easier. So we'll say income button dot on click, and then we're going to call this function here when it gets clicked, and then with that we're just going to say handler dot open. Cool. Okay, so we did a little bit of coding in the dark here. So if we want to go back and just go over the entire flow again, what's going to happen? So when the page loads, we're going to call this this function here that calls this route here to create the link token. So if we go back here, what's happening when this gets invoked? We're going to create the income verification by passing in the webhook here at the top. It returns back an income verification ID. We then assign that to that global variable, because again, we don't have a data store. So we're just going to put it there. Then we go ahead and create the link token by passing in the user information, the client name, the country codes, the products, the language, and then what we really care about, which is that income verification. So, and then specifically the income verification ID, and then return it to the backend, right? Then we're going to go through the flow. So that's going to be in the front end. We're going to do it in a second. Then the on success callback is going to fire. And then we're just going to say go ahead and hit this route to pull the income data, which lands us over here. And then we're just going to go ahead and say, okay, get the summary from that income verification ID, print it out. And then same thing for the pay stub response. So a little bit more granular information about the specific pay stub, and then print it out, and then just go ahead and send 200. Okay, everything's working according to plan. So again, we coded in the dark a little bit. So let's go ahead and see if everything went according to plan. So it says listening on port 3001. I'm going to go ahead and open up my console here, load the page, and click open. So here you have it, Plaid link. So everything so far went according to plan. So again, you can see here app of Tyler, which is what we passed in creating a link token, lets the user know that it's going to use Plaid to link your payroll provider. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue. And then from here, you can see that that waterfall flow that Raj was talking about for whether you can verify instantly or upload the documents manually. So let's go ahead first and go through the upload document manually first. So here it lets them know, okay, go ahead and upload the information. So I'm going to go ahead and click start. I'm just going to go ahead and add this demo pay stub. You can add more than one, but I'm just going to add one for now. So go ahead and click continue. Go ahead and click submit one document. From here, it's just going to let us know that, okay, you're going to share this information with app of Tyler, so the employee information and income estimates. Click allow, and then from here, you can already see that the on success callback is fired. So let's actually just go back. I'm actually going to get rid of that, and then let's go through the flow again, because the JSON schema is going to be the same. So no matter whether you go through the payroll income or the manual document income, the scheme is going to be the same. We normalize the data for you, so you don't have to be handling different information for those different flows. So go ahead and click verify instantly. And so here we have all of the default employers and payroll providers that we found to have the most or that influence the most increase in conversion. So you can see here, you can just go ahead and click through, or you can go ahead and search in the search bar. So you can either search for the payroll provider, or you can search for the employer. Verify instantly. We'll go ahead and click Amazon. So from here, type in user good, and then pass good. And then from here, what's going to happen is it's going to let them know that this information is going to be shared with me, and go ahead and click allow. And then if we go over here, we can go ahead and look at the terminal and see all the information that was printed out. So again, we have our income summary. So we have the employee name and whether or not it was verified or not, and then the value as well, the employer name, the pay frequency, the projected wage, and then the verified transactions. And then we also passed back the gross income and then the net income. And then from the pay stub, we also, what we're going to pass back is information about the employee, so their address, so specifically their city, country, postal code, region, street, and then name. And then their employer, and then the breakdown of their income, so the hours, the rates, the total, and the type. And then so for the type, we have regular, overtime, and bonus, so we do differentiate between that. And then we also have the pay period details, so the check amount, the end date, the gross earnings, the pay day, the start date, and then also the year-to-date earnings, specifically the gross earnings, and then also the net earnings. And so that's it. So let's go ahead and jump back to presentation here. And so yeah, so to close things out, if you don't already have an account, you can go ahead and sign up at plaid.com. And so you can also sign up specifically for our income beta at plaid.com/income. And you can start testing immediately in Sandbox and also development. And so you can do exactly what I was showing you before. So in Sandbox mode, and then if you want to see or use the app that I just built, you can go ahead and check it out at github.com/TylerNappy/Plaid Income Workshop. And so that's all we got for you today. So at this time, we'll open it up for any questions that y'all might have.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks so much. And someone mentioned in the chat how very brave to do a live demo. So I think that was awesome to see. And someone also was interested in hiring you for integrating with Plaid, but hopefully you'll stick around. Cool. So yeah, just jumping into some questions here that we've kind of gotten in the chat and heard from you folks. So there's a question here on some of the reasons why someone might not be able to verify their income with Payroll Income. And that's that sort of digital verify instantly kind of flow that Tyler showed and that I mentioned before. So a big reason is credentials, right? If a user doesn't know their password, which can be common for people with respect to the payroll account, they don't remember what their payroll account credentials are. So yeah, that's, I think, one of the major reasons why that might happen. Another reason is, as I mentioned, they might not know their payroll provider, and which we try to solve by showing them who their payroll provider is once they search for their employer. But there might be some edge cases here in which we don't have coverage there. And then there are some cases, some other edge cases with some self-employed folks and freelancers who might not be able to use payroll income rather. And this is where document income hopefully can meet those needs as well, is that users can upload documents to Plaid, and then we can process those and return income information from there. Cool. And then looking for some additional questions here. Give me a moment. Let's see. So then there's some questions in the chat as well about the search functionality. So two things I want to highlight here. One is that we prompt the user to search for their employer. And one thing I'd add here is that this kind of search functionality is not just limited to employers, right? What's kind of listed in that in those kind of search results in that search pane should be both employers as well as payroll providers. So there's a question, with the example, like if I have an employer and the employer uses ADP, and I see ADP listed, is that the same thing? And the answer should be that yes. Like if you're this search pane should have both employers and payroll providers supported. Excuse me. Another question was about if you already have employer information, and yes, this is a way that you can streamline this process and reduce the number of panes that the user goes through, and hopefully a win for conversion, which is if you provide the employer information, we can skip that sort of search and select screen altogether and just go straight to who the end payroll provider is. And I think in our example, we had Sequoia. If you already know that there's an employer and under the hood, that employer uses Sequoia, we should be able to skip straight to Sequoia for the user to authenticate from there. And then another question here, which or how many payroll providers are supported at this time? Do you have an estimate on what percentage of the workforce this represents? So we cover 80% of Fortune 100 companies and about 60% of gig workers. And of course, like, as I kind of mentioned, this product is in beta and we're working to build this out more and more over time. So there should be plenty of support in the future as we work on this. Excuse me. There's a question as well about access to documents. And so I think the original question had to do with, can we access the original documents uploaded, which I think is referring to the document income piece in which users upload documents themselves. So the answer is yes. If a user is going through the document upload flow, we will then be able to, we'll expose this back via an API call where you should be able to access those documents for your retrieval. Another cool thing is we have the support as well on the payroll income side. So there's that digital side in which the users go through that payroll income flow and then we retrieve that information. We should be able to retrieve documents as part of that as well, and then should be able to return that back to you via API call. Cool, let me scan through here. Let's see, just kind of pulling up the Q&A chat. I think I lost it here, give me 1 second. So there's a question about handling employers that aren't in the database. So just wanted to call out again that we also have support for covering payroll providers directly. So if a user does know their payroll provider, they can search for that if they think that they might know who that is, and then go to that payroll provider. The user themselves can't add an employer to payroll provider. So I want to just kind of highlight here that we are building this out ourselves. So I think we kind of want to add more and more support as time goes on, but today a user can't themselves add that sort of mapping. And there's a question about accuracy and turnaround time. I think like in terms of turnaround time, in just a few minutes, we should be able to turn those documents into structured JSON. And accuracy, I think we have an accuracy kind of guarantee or percentage around, or a target of around 99+%. Don't quote me on that. I'll have to double check on that. Cool, let me try to find some additional ones. There's a question about the GitHub link. Tyler, can we share that again?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go back. So if you go to, if you're number 4, so github.com, Tyler Nappy, Plaid Income Workshop.
Okay, let me try to drop this in the chat real quick. It's github.com/Tyler Nappy/Plaid Workshop. Awesome. Cool. Let's see. Trying to think, how much time do we have left, by the way? Victor, do you know?
We can go over if we need to.
Okay. And please keep sending me your questions. And
okay,
this
cool.
is being recorded.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let me just scan through here. What can I answer live here? Actual pay stub. Yeah, there's another question about, I think This is also asking about retrieving the actual documents, and yes, you can return those documents back to you, and we should return those as structured JSON from those documents. Just trying to make sure. Cool. Victor, are you spotting any ones that we should cover here?
No, it looks good to me. And we can, if there are no more questions, we can also end early.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. And we'll follow up with some other ones as well and go through the chat and make sure we follow up with folks. All right, with that, I think we can end here. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining. We really, really appreciate you going through this workshop with us. And thanks as well to Tyler for doing that live demo. And we'll look forward to this out on YouTube. Thanks again, everyone.
All right, thanks, everyone.